we also have to talk about Thrawn Treason.
Thrawn Treason.
And I believe we've also opened up Q&As. What?
It's treason time.
It's treason time. But there's also Q&As open.
Yeah.
So make sure you guys submit any questions. We can try to talk about that stuff as well, especially after we talk about Thrawn.
Yep. All right, so the third book in this series, we read Thrawn, we read Thrawn Alliances, and now Thrawn Treason.
Sure.
Which seems to really be the closing of this trilogy of what is Thrawn doing in between Rebel seasons?
Well, yeah. And this one, too, not even after Rebel seasons.
Yeah.
There's a part where it's like in the middle of the last season, and like he gets a notification from Tarkin talking about his TIE Defender program and how he needs to like appeal to the Emperor to make sure they don't get rid of it. And they take off, and then you don't see him again until like the final episode and stuff. So this is where he was during that whole time, which is pretty interesting. I thought that was cool to be able to like, okay, what was he doing?
Yeah.
And at the very beginning, I was kind of like, oh, this is what he was doing?
That's what he's doing.
Because it was the premise of this book is that Krennic is working on Project Stardust, right? The Death Star.
Yeah.
And his supply line and stuff is being interrupted and messed up, and it's because of Grolix or big versions of Minox.
They're like giant Minox that, it's not just annoying when they're chewing on the power cable, it's debilitating when they're chewing on the power cable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like these Minox, they're like going, they're chewing on these ships. Sometimes it triggers something, and we see it in one of the chapters of this book too, where a ship has been triggered in its hyperspace, and they're trying to stop it, and it just takes off and it's just gone.
Yep.
And this is what they've been doing: is these Minox come and they chew on these cables, and the ships fly off, and they get lost into space because they're not being like, they're not like trying to program them to a certain location. They just fly off somewhere, right?
Yeah, and it's annoying enough where it's like it is making a headache with the scheduling and the budget of Project Stardust.
Yeah, and it's already an expensive project already.
Yeah, and it takes up most of the Empire's whole budget, right?
Yeah.
Which is why Thrawn can't get funding for the Defender project.
Yeah. So I thought Tarkin's idea was like, okay, well, if he can solve your Grolic problem in a week, he gets his Defender project money. But if he can't do it, then we'll take his project money and give it to you.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. But then I was like, so this is the book, is we're just hunting and solving a Grolic problem.
Grolic problem.
All these Minox are doing stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So I was kind of like, this seems dumb.
Timothy Zahn, let me tell you something, buddy. This one ain't it.
Yeah.
That seems dumb.
It did. In the very beginning, I was like, this seems like I wanted more from Thrawn, except for hunting vermin down.
Yeah, he's got to hunt that vermin.
I think it seems silly. Even the Emperor Palpatine's like, so we're being delayed by vermin. You know? He's like upset and angry about it. But the as it goes on too, he starts researching, which they've been looking into it for years, I guess, trying to figure out this problem and solve it and whatnot. But I like that Thrawn, he's like, okay, here's all the data they all have. I don't care.
Yep.
I'm going to get my own data.
Yeah.
Let's start shooting them. And eventually they like...
Begin ion bombardment.
Yeah. They start attacking him and stuff. They eventually get one. They dissect it and look into it and stuff. And eventually Thrawn's like, you know what? We're leaving. I just thought it was interesting. And like his process, one, was to ignore everything. But then he caught on to something else. They went to where they thought the ship... I think it was the Arlon or Arlen 4 or something like that.
Yeah.
But that ship takes off, and they have a space station that they find basically like out in space in the trajectory of where that ship took off to. And now there's a grander scheme, and it's not just about the Grolics.
It's not just the Grolics. It's the return of the people that appeared last time, right?
Sure. Well, they're involved too.
Well, they're involved, sure.
But there's higher up somewhere in the Imperials.
There's a conspiracy, and then there's also an intrusion upon the Empire itself that gets wrapped up
from
in that
the
conspiracy.
Grisk, right? So they're in there too.
I love. There's a line later in the book where it's like, they sent Thrawn out to deal with these vermin. He came back with a treasonous conspiracy plot with interlopers.
Yeah. Within the week.
Of course he's right. Within the week.
Yeah. Like, here's the thing. These guys have been working. No one's figured any of this stuff out for, like, months to years. And Thrawn comes in for a week and he's like, he did it.
I enjoyed how incredibly petty director Orson Krennic is. Where he's telling, because he has an assistant director, right?
Ronan, I think.
Ronan. And he sends him with Thrawn and says, like, look, I want him to solve this pest problem. But mess him up just enough where he can't solve it, and then bring his solution back to me, and I'll solve it.
Yeah,
you know?
that way I get the money, and I get the vermin.
I'm like, you
gone.
are so petty. Mm-hmm. And he makes all of his people wear capes, too. It's so fun.
Well, I liked how they described the assistant director as like, he also had a cape, but it wasn't quite as long as Krennic's cape.
Sure.
It was a little shorter. But, no, I thought it was, it got into an interesting story from there.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, the first, 4 or 5 chapters, I'm like, wow, man, this is what we're doing. I don't want to hunt Grolix and stuff. But it got into more of a conspiracy theory. We also met, we met her before, I think, at the end of the first Thrawn book was Arlani.
Yeah, Admiral
Arlani.
Yeah.
So it was cool to bring Eli back into this.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man.
Because I felt like I missed him from the last
Me
book.
too.
But I also liked having Anakin and Vader. You know?
Oh, yeah, that was great.
Like, that was really good.
Yeah.
So I missed Eli, but the last book with that was really good.
I missed Eli, and Commodore Pharaoh was kind of like taking Eli's place for me. I was like, well, I really like Pharaoh, though, so I guess we got Pharaoh. But this book allowed me to enjoy them both. And this book also didn't do a thing where, I don't know, sometimes when we're reading these books, we'll switch point of views to something else that's happening. I'll be like, dang it, I was really good in the other one. You know, this one I felt like did that better.
Okay, sure. No, I get what you mean. I liked a lot of the Eli story stuff that we were doing. Also, this was Mark Thompson, wasn't it, that read this?
This was Mark Thompson,
because, like, Thrawn was really good. Krennic was really good. Yeah. Like, whenever Krennic was talking, I'm like, man, that sounds like Krennic.
Yeah.
He does such a good voice.
And then part of the cast also is Grand Admiral, what's his name? Savit.
Yeah.
Who Mark Thompson had a choice for Grand Admiral Savit.
I called him like the Imperial Sean Connery.
Yeah, he's totally Sean Connery. As soon as you said that, I could not hear it.
I was like, what about that Sean Connery Imperial? And you're like, the what? I'm like, listen to this.
No, yeah, you're right.
Like,
I don't know why, but yeah.
So now I just pictured Sean Connery as an Imperial.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what my.
Were you picturing older Sean Connery, or were you picturing
he was
younger?
Older.
Well, mine was older too. Mine was Rock, the Rock.
Sean Connery. That'd be good. Yeah. No, definitely that. I wasn't like.
I could see him in the white uniform and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Because they described him as being older and stuff too and whatnot. But no, I thought I went through and was re-listening to some of the stuff too after I had finished, and there was a few parts where I'm like, oh, okay, and we can get into the things I pick up with it and whatnot. But originally I was kind of like, why is he here?
Savik?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why Savit's here. Like, I
thought it was cool, like, meeting another of the 12 Grand Admirals.
That was one thing, too, is I didn't realize, I guess similar to, like, Grand Moff Tarkin, right? I'm like, the Grand Moff Tarkin. He's better than the other Moffs, right? He's the Grand Moff.
Yeah.
I think I kind of thought, like, Grand Admiral Thrawn. He's better than just Admiral whatever.
Sure.
But, apparently there's a lot more admirals, Grand Admirals, than I thought there were.
Yeah.
So we met another one of those here with this.
Yep.
And
he wasn't particularly impressive.
No, not necessarily.
But I should say he also, I think, got jobbed more than any other commander character I've seen in Star Wars.
Sure. No. I thought that these books have done a pretty good job of, like, threading a line where I'm like, I don't necessarily like these Imperials, but I don't necessarily hate these Imperials.
Oh,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get you.
Where it's like, I feel like not... It's one of those things, too, of, like, from the point of view, like... I'm rooting for, like, Eli, and I'm rooting for, like, these different, like, I'm rooting on Thrawn. Like, I want Admiral Thrawn to do a good job and succeed, but, like, then you see him in other situations, I'm like, man,
it's the power of the protagonists.
Yeah.
Like, you have to.
Yeah, but, like, the conversations they had, too, and I think it was Ronan, the assistant director of Krennic, who was talking about, like, there's a part earlier on in the book where they're talking about, Admiral Thrawn has set them up to admit that they didn't do the things they were supposed to do, right? Like, I hate when leaders do that. And they set them up to admit that they failed and didn't do it right. And then he's like, oh, good, I'm glad you did it. You know, like, it's like, wait, what? He's not angry? He's not rubbing things in their face? He's not, like, what? And it catches him off guard.
He genuinely tries to better the people under him?
Yeah. And, like, you look around at, like, all the people who are, like, with Thrawn and doing the things and, like, agree. And, like, he's there for his people, too. Like, he doesn't want his people to die or anything.
I think that it's important that the crux of the kind of not final battle, but one of the final battles is, will an Imperial do the right thing?
Sure.
Right? I mean, that's pretty much what he asks of Pelion.
Yeah.
Right? On his ship and some of the other Imperials, where it's like, hey, it's not about just following orders. You need to actually think about the orders that are being followed, or you're being asked, and then make your decision. So, I mean, that's cool, but the Empire are a bunch of fascist Nazis too. So,
No, they are. Like at one point they talk about like a food that's like the bare minimum of like a Wookiee or something like that, right? And it's like, oh, well, this must be like the slave food for a Wookiee, right?
Yeah.
To work on the Death Star or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but as far as the story goes, like I thought it was interesting. We meet Arlani and Eli, who have been following Grisks. The Grisks have been like trying to sneak in and take the stuff that has been being like the conspiracy theft that has been happening. So there's Imperials that are stealing stuff, and then the Grisks found out and started taking their stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So there ends up being like a spread out, and we kind of go in different directions and learn more information, do all these things, and then ultimately come back to learning that Grand Admiral Savit has been leading this conspiracy because he is against the Death Star. And
much like Thrawn is.
Kind of, yeah. But I was with him to a point where he's like, this is a waste of money. It's much better to have this on the Defender program or something like that, where it's going to support so much more instead of eventually, whether it's in a year or 2 years or 10 years, this will be destroyed and we'll have nothing.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay. So what have you been doing with all the weapons? It's like you've been profiting from this?
Yeah.
It's not like he's been like delivering it to other Imperials and helping to get all their ships stronger and stuff. So I was like, well, you kind of lost me on that there. Like if you'd been like, well, I've been hoarding it all because I just don't want them to have it. It's a waste of stuff and we'll divvy it up later. Like that's maybe a little different. He could have been like, hey, Emperor, look, you're wasting this. This is put this somewhere else, But
and I gotta admit, like I didn't suspect him almost all the way up until where he's like, I wonder when the best way to kill Thrawn is. And I was like, huh?
Wait, what?
What do you mean, buddy? I think I read that wrong.
Sure.
And then I was like, oh. And then when Thrawn accused him, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
How are you gonna get out of this? You're on his ship.
Yeah.
And Thrawn's like, I want a good view of the coming battle.
Yeah. No, it was really cool. They really brought a lot of information together, but the prisoner exchange that they wanted towards the end of the book I thought was great, where he's there, then like Thrawn is there at Savit, he's on his ship, he's up in his bridge without any he just went, and I love when he's like, how'd you sneak up here? It's like, do you really think I could have snuck up here without anyone seeing me?
Right.
It's like, no, it sounds ridiculous. It's like, yes, but how many of your people would have interrupted a Grand Admiral walking through your Imperial Star Destroyer? It's a good point. Yeah. All right.
No, they see that uniform a lot, and they have respect for it.
Yeah, they're like, I ain't saying anything. He's doing something. Yeah. He's on a mission. I'm not going to be like, excuse me, sir, stop.
Yeah. No, that was good.
But I really did enjoy the final battle where he's like, we're going to capture you, Savit, and there will be no bloodshed. Mm-hmm. And the process that they went through with that I thought was really cool. And his ship won the battle, doing everything he told them to do without him being there to tell them to do it.
Sure.
Right? Like he told Faro, here's everything you're going to do. When he does this, you do this. When he does this, you do this.
Yeah.
And it's like he wasn't even on the ship to tell. She's just remembering and relaying the orders. And she's like, I'm wondering if he can win a battle without being in it.
Yeah.
I was like, that's ridiculous. But it's just Admiral Thrawn, I guess.
It's Admiral Thrawn. I mean, Pharaoh followed the instructions, but I also appreciate that he called out whenever she adapted his instructions.
And went higher and stuff. Yeah.
Like, I don't think that... I think that she's one of the most impressive people I've seen. I'm glad that she was awarded, the 11th Fleet or something like that at the end.
Like, was going to go back to Coruscant and stuff. Now, when they said about that, I didn't re-listen to it, and I should have. Were they saying that she will be going back to Coruscant, or is like after we go to Lothal, you will go back to Coruscant?
She will be going back to Coruscant. They said that she's going to start orientation for leading the...
Okay. Because I was like, oh, no. She went to Lothal.
Oh, no. Chopper's going to get her.
Yeah. I was like, I don't want that to happen.
No, I get you. Yeah.
But it was
Hellion
cool.
was on Lothal, though.
It was cool to have, he was there. And he was here in his, was it the Harbinger?
I think it's the Harbinger.
I think.
And then, maybe.
I think
not the Steadfast. The Steadfast is the Chiss
That
ship.
was, Arlani's.
So the Harbinger.
Harbinger was his, and then the Dragon Breath, Dragon Flame Dragon? Fire Dragon?
Yeah, something like that.
Something with that was Savit's ship.
Savit's flagship,
and I enjoyed the whole combat method they did. I enjoyed all of Thrawn's ideas. Mm-hmm. He brought on his own troopers to steal their TIE fighters. Yeah. And then they took off and attacked the ship, and then they used that to be like, some of our TIE fighters went rogue because Savit's going crazy, and they're trying to stop it too. And I was like, that's really good.
I had two things in the book that were my two equal favorites.
Okay.
One is Vanko, who are Vanto.
Okay.
Eli, who in the first Thrawn book, it took so long for him to finally get past the rank of lieutenant. Mm-hmm. And then he goes to Chiss Ascendancy, and they demote him to lieutenant. I thought that was really funny. And then also,
and then by the end of the book, they made him like lieutenant commander or something, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, and he has a very interesting project that he's working on. He's pretty much trying to find a way to track and predict where Chiss Skywalkers are going to show up, which is really cool.
Yeah, like that was the project he was working on, which is interesting because like in the beginning of the book, they're like, they just gave me all this information and it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
He's like, it's not ship directions, it's not military schematics or anything. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing. It's just like busy work.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that eventually it's like, oh, here's kind of what you've been doing and what's going on. And he also has that connection with Vanya, I think was her name, right?
Vanya, the 22-year-old.
Yeah, the older Chiss, like.
Yeah, she like still has her third sight, right?
Yeah.
They have second sight, which is the driving, and then third sight, like she can pretty much, she uses the Force in a pretty significant way. Like she can like connect and read minds.
So much that like Ronan was like, no.
Exactly, yeah.
At one point he's like watching, he's like, she flinched. Why? And he's like, that guy tripped and everyone else flinched, but she didn't because she flinched already.
Yeah,
she must have the Force. She must be a Jedi. Thrawn has Jedi. And
Treason.
He just goes through this whole thing. He's like, wait a minute. Maybe they put me here so I can watch them, so I can report all the Jedi, so that we can capture the Jedi. That's the real reason. You know, like he
really
spiraled so much into this thing. I thought he was a fun character and stuff too. Or she? I think it was a she, right?
Ronan?
I think. I'm trying to remember when they were describing the different characters. There was someone where I'm like, okay, so that one was a girl, and that one was a guy.
Ronan was a guy.
Was Ronan the guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
He talks like this. At least that's what Mark Thompson has him as. But
sure.
I may be wrong, but
okay.
Unless I went that entire thing assuming the wrong gender, I might have.
It's possible.
It's happened before.
Yeah, sure. But the just the story of their character and how they kind of went from like Admiral Thrawn and like we get to the end where they're there and Savit is holding Ronan and has and is like, I'm gonna shoot Thrawn and they like, well, I don't like Thrawn, but I don't like Savit, and I'll do this. And like they help Thrawn and stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, well, good. Like there's like that inner struggle of where I should go and what should Thrawn die, and it helps me both ways.
And then ends up being another person that's going to be sent to the Ascendancy.
Yeah,
which I was shocked by. I'm like, really?
It's a weird choice, isn't it? I think, but
maybe Thrawn's thinking like this guy, because Ronan throughout the book even would say a couple of times like, hey, I wasn't always an administrator in the Imperial. I have skills too. Like whenever he acts like he's an actor playing himself. That was a really fun moment. But
with Eli and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
There was parts of me that was like, I wonder if I should reread this and think of him as more likable, because I didn't really like him throughout the whole book until the very end, So, but that could make for a really interesting character. Maybe I end up loving him later, And he has a cape, so it's cool.
Yeah. I did enjoy their journey to, I forget what planet it was, but it was into the sector where the governor with an H. It was Savit's sector and stuff. Yeah. I want to say Governor Haywood, but I don't think that was it.
It was something like that.
It was something along those lines. But where they were going there and they were researching and looking into everything that was going on, and I thought it was interesting. Like Eli's like, I got to hurry up and come up with stuff on the fly. Yeah. We're like spies, basically.
Well, and also he has the 2 Death Troopers with him.
Yeah, sure.
Who, I don't know why, but those guys cracked me up. Because they were like badass, like Terminator dudes, but like they weren't like the most competent.
Sure.
Just something about the way they interact with everybody just kind of made me laugh.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, there was
really
something
why.
with him that I was like, I like that. I didn't remember that. Now I forget what it was, but
this is because they were so hardcore, There's just something edgy about the 2 Death Troopers out of the outfit. that really enjoyed.
I like that. I also I thought it was interesting. There was a point when Eli was trying to convince people about something, and he like name drops Night Swan, and I was like, oh, Night Swan.
Yeah,
is Night Swan gonna be here?
Where'd
he come? What do you mean? Wait, when are we? I was like, why are you saying Night Swan?
No, I mean, he has to work with what he has, right? He knows Night Swan's a pretty big name.
Yeah.
And then he says Night Swan was working with the Hutts. And, that
there's like
lady,
a name drop, and at first, when it first got mentioned, I got real excited. I'm like, wait a minute. Wait, what are we doing?
He's not around.
Yeah.
He was saying like he was the new Night Swan. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just got so excited when they named him and stuff.
But then we also meet a character named Mole.
Yeah, Mole.
Who has a fantastic name, because it turns out Mole is a mole working for the ISB, an ISB agent. Daedra? Not Daedra. Daedra is
Daedra?
the ISB from Andor. Isn't that her name?
Oh.
Daedra?
Yeah, that sounds right.
It was like Data?
It wasn't
not Data.
Data.
Let me look it up.
Data.
Because he really was one of my favorite new characters in the book.
I thought he was really cool.
Yeah, I absolutely loved the way that he's acting like a mole, and then
the performance you get from Mark Thompson in this,
yeah,
up until when he changes.
Yeah, he has a nasally voice up in here.
It's so like nervous, anxiety feeling, right? Like just constantly. I thought it was done really well. It's like he came in like he knows everything, but it's like
Daedra. That's what it is. It's just Daedra was fun.
It took me a long time to realize what Savit's name was, just because like every time I heard them pronounce it, I was like, they say Sabit? They say Savine? They say Sabine?
Oh, okay.
They say what they say.
Yeah.
So it took me a long time. So some of the names I'm like, they say this one, because I'm not reading it either. If I could read it and hear it, I'd be like, oh, now I see.
Yeah. But just the shock of when Mole just like, oh, okay, well, you're not gonna kill me, are you? Like, no, of course I'm not gonna kill you. You're Mole.
What about my 100 credits?
Yeah. And then he just like kicks someone in the chest 3 times in like a second.
Yeah.
Takes everybody out. And I just thought it was cool having this like James Bond Imperial agent thing, you know?
Yeah.
He's not so much like Callus, who was a little more over the top evil. This guy was a little more like, you pay me, I do what needs done.
Yeah.
So I really liked it.
It's like, you must be worth it to burn my cover.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they escaped.
And then he just escapes at the end. Like, they just never bring him back until the very end where he shoots.
Which I thought that
Yeah.
the uncovering of him being there was really cool. Because it's like,
fun.
they turn around, like, stormtroopers just laying on the ground.
Yeah.
And there they are. They've shot. I thought that was really cool. So it was a really neat character. And it did.
I would like to see him again.
I thought about it for a little bit where I'm like, Mole. I was like, is this person just happened to show up at a very convenient time?
Yeah.
But the name Mole seems too obvious.
Yeah.
Right?
It does.
You know?
Yeah.
So I'm like, maybe not. But
no, I wasn't thinking about it at all.
Yeah.
Maybe it was Mark Thompson burying it with that voice, but
maybe
I did not consider it at all.
The voice and stuff, I don't know how it was written, but the way he performed whatever was written was great.
Sure, I get you.
But yeah, whenever he first showed up, because it was like, there's about to be trouble for Eli. How's he going to get out of this? And then someone showed up immediately, and I was like, ooh, did Thrawn send somebody? What is this? Is this going to be their escape? And then I was like, okay, maybe not. Named Mole, and the way they kind of like, they didn't come in for them. They came in for other stuff. And then they're like, ooh, what's that? And it's like, well, you know about the other thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what are they? Well, you know, they already did the thing, and it didn't, like, there's like this stutteriness with them, and it's also very matter of fact.
It is.
And I thought the performance for that was really cool. I like that a lot.
I liked whenever he burnt his cover, and then the dead troopers were like, actually, your cover is quite certain if we kill these ones. Like, come on, buddy. Muffin, stop it. I don't remember his name was. Muffin. Something like that, though.
There was like Pick or something.
Yeah.
Pick or Bick or
Yeah.
something like that.
They mentioned that their names sounded a little strange.
Yeah, it wasn't Muffin,
like
though. But yeah, there was a weird name.
Those guys were funny.
But yeah. No, I thought that was pretty good, too.
I think the book really sold for me just how scary and powerful the Grists might be. Yeah, waffle. That's what it was.
You made me laugh. Waffle.
But the Grist, slave client species they have, but the explanations we have from some of those human prisoners about what exactly they do, like they get you on their side. They enslave you to the point, not like what Palpatine's doing with fear, but they take your will, right? Palpatine with the Death Star is literally like freezing everybody in fear, like do something or I destroy planets,
Sure.
Do this or I destroy planets. Whereas the Grits like make you love them, make you serve them for real. They take away your mind. And when they were explaining, or I guess it was Pharaoh that was really thinking about it, like, yeah, the Death Star is scary, but if you can have billions of people within the Empire fall to that, then what can you do? You can't fire the Death Star at all of them. You know?
Yeah. Maybe you had a lot of TIE defenders.
But if you had a bunch of TIE defenders, we would, huh?
Yeah.
That's right, motherfucker.
No, I mean, like, as they've gone and stuff, too, and I like that they also mentioned about, like, Darth Vader really liked this, but, he's with the Emperor. If the Emperor pushes the Death Star, he'll push the Death Star. But maybe he buys me a little bit of time.
Yeah.
So, no, I think this book was fun, and I enjoyed it. Mm-hmm. I think I liked the first 2 more.
I loved the first one. The second one I liked. I mean, I love the Anakin stuff, but there were like I think I don't know. I like them all, honestly.
Sure. The second one, like, I really loved all the Anakin Vader stuff.
Yeah.
The Padme stuff felt slower for me.
Sure.
On that a lot.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, I want to get back to the Vader things
Yeah.
and the Anakin stuff and whatnot. But in this one, though, like you said, like, I like going and seeing Thrawn.
Yeah.
I like going and seeing Eli.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, those are two of the main stories that we're following.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember if there's other parts where I'm like, oh, man, what are we doing here? But I liked Ronan enough, too, where...
Me too. Eventually, I liked him enough. Yeah.
So it didn't have too much stuff I didn't like that drug it down a whole lot.
Yeah.
But I think the overall story for it, and also maybe part of the problem too is like this one's really close to where I know of like the ending of like the TIE Defender program, right?
Absolutely.
Or where not quite where Thrawn ends up, but where he kind of ends up. So like I kind of know like, man, no matter what he does with this program, whether he wins or loses, he loses. So like maybe there's a little bit of that element there too, whereas like going through the original book, like I don't really know this part of Thrawn, what we're going to get out of him, and getting introduced to him and watching him rise through the ranks and make his way, and even get some Governor Price and stuff in there. That stuff was really cool too. But the second book really had like, here's a flashback to when he met Anakin Skywalker. I'm like, oh, that's really cool. And now we're going to go to today where he's fighting alongside Darth Vader. I'm like, oh, it's and he's like trying to figure out who's inside the Darth Vader suit, and there was all those elements there. Mm-hmm. This one here had like still a mystery, but it wasn't a mystery that I thought was quite as like captivating for me as some of the past books, I think.
Yeah, it really has like, it gives you like a taste that, hey, things out in the unknown region are really, really bad, and the Empire might not be prepared for it.
Sure.
Right? But I mean,
I want more of that.
It does make you think like, oh, okay, so I want more of that, which, I mean, I am heartened knowing that there's another trilogy of the Thrawn books that's specifically the Ascendancy. So that sounds awesome.
Yeah. Like that'd be cool.
Yeah.
And I wonder too, of like going forward and more canon and whatnot, well, how much of this will stay with being important to things? Will it kind of fall into the back burner where it's still there, but it's not being like fully utilized or anything? Because I want to see the Grisk more, like I want to see like,
me too.
How do we fight these creatures? And
also the title of this book, I was like, Treason. Oh, holy, what? Oh, this guy's Treason. Okay, I get it.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing too, because we talked about it last book where it's like, they're already kind of worried about the way he is with the Chiss and, going and protecting the Skywalkers and stuff like that, right? Like, Vader kind of accused him as possibly being treasonous and not being fully for the Empire and being for the Chiss.
I mean, so Thrawn will have to, he eventually is going to have to make a choice, the Empire or the Ascendancy. And either one choice he makes will be treasonous.
Sure.
Right?
And Eli kind of talks about that a little bit too, right? Where it's like, it's interesting, both of us are in a predicament where we're in another place that we weren't originally, and we have joined their side.
Yeah.
But have either of us fully joined their side, or are we still kind of working for the other side too, Yeah. So I'll be very curious to see kind of where that route goes. And I would hope we get more Eli as well, because Eli has been an interesting character, I think, through at least the two books. He wasn't in the second one, but...
Of the characters that you can label good Imperials, he's like the best.
I think he's one of the best ones, yeah. Like just the things he says, the people he talks to, the trust he has in him. I like how upset he was whenever he was like, "Oh, hi."
Yeah.
That's all I got. Oh,
Yeah,
like,
right.
Like, Lieutenant Vanto.
Yeah.
And like, that's it? Not even. Okay, you know
what? It
was
very much like Goku and Gohan and a bridge. And it's like, Dad, you're back. Hey.
Yeah, right? So it's like he's contemplating like, were we ever friends? Yeah. Are we friends? Were we just co-workers?
I know, it was so hard for me to read that or listen to it.
Yeah, so like
I wanted him to feel better.
Those bits and stuff, and it's like, who is the loyalty people have to Thrawn because of who Thrawn is, or is it because he is the Grand Admiral and they're just listening to the people higher up in the Empire? Yeah. So I don't know, but there's different things with that. Like I root on Thrawn so much more in this, and I feel like I shouldn't be, But
I mean, it will. Yeah, it's gonna make watching Ahsoka more complicated.
Well, sure.
But we'll see if they pick up on any of that stuff or not.
Sure.
Whenever we,
I guess this leads to the point where, like, in future times, whenever you have like rebels fighting him, like I kind of want him to win. Yeah. But I don't want him to beat the good guys. I don't know. I did enjoy the prologue as well. We got a little bit with the Emperor.
Yeah, we did,
which I thought was cool, and it more butted into where we see him again in like Rebels canon and stuff too.
Really feels like that was like, these three books open and close with the Emperor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Kind of.
You meet Thrawn on the planet, and then
Yeah.
you go to the Emperor.
Mm-hmm.
And then here we get back to the Emperor, and he's like, all right, so what happened? Tell me the story. All right, well, we'll deal with that. But first, Ezra Bridger,
Yeah.
go build me a temple in your chimera.
Yeah, chimera.
Yeah.
Don't tell anyone.
It's like, it's just, all right, I guess I'll do that,
Get
So-
me a digital artist. I need a new Instagram filter. And he puts that thing on.
Yeah, right? Because he's all digital and stuff. That'd be fun.
But hey, I did like at the end, they also seed that Thrawn was the one that recommended Vader oversee the Death Star, even though he's not in charge like Krennic and then later Tarkin is.
Yeah.
Like, no, at the very least, you need to have him there. And he is the most competent one there in Episode 4, so that does work, kind of.
Sure.
But to think,
Well,
Vader might not have been there, and you might not have ever had, Obi-Wan and Vader showdown and the Luke stuff, so it's a pretty prominent thing to have him be the one that puts that into motion.
Sure.
You know?
No, I get you. And Thrawn, like, through these books, has a lot of connections to the Death Star, and it's mainly in ways that are him finding out and realizing and putting together things.
yeah.
And it's not that he's involved with the creation of it or anything. It's that he is smart and not just a fool of, like, I'll follow orders and ignore what's not mine. And he's always looking and putting things together and trying to figure out what the Emperor's up to.
And even though we know for a fact he has an ego, like, he almost never lets it affect him. Other than just like, I'm going to dominate my enemies, like there's a certain amount of ego and being able to say that you can do it in the first place. But in terms of like the Empire and what it can be or what it is, I feel like if Thrawn was in charge, the Empire wouldn't be that bad. I don't know exactly, but to put it on to Palpatine is nothing if not ego. Right?
Sure, I get what you mean.
Like the Sith are egotistical in that we're taking all the power just for our master. The student needs to get above the master, and then that is transferred to him, right? And it's a matter of ego on top of ego on top of ego. Until you get to Palpatine, who says, I will be Emperor of the Galaxy for thousands of years now.
Forever.
He even said at the end here, it's like, it'll be nice. Maybe we can, the Ascendancy and the Empire can join up and fight the Grisk. And then I can rule them both, Like, he's nothing but ego. But there's a part of me that's like, the way that Thrawn interacts with his crew, obviously not the things that he's doing and the orders that he's following, but the way he interacts with his crew feels very fair to me.
Sure.
Well, I'm not saying the Empire would be good under him, because obviously I think we're going to get the Empire under him in future
we'll see
stuff.
what that's like. So,
but this version of Thrawn, if I had to pick, it would easily go to him.
Sure. And they even mention in this book too about how the Emperor, rather than like what Thrawn does, he will let his lackeys, subjects, whatever, like fight each other, and he's almost entertained by, Savit's talking about like, oh well, Tarkin here has he wants to take over the Death Star, so he's trying to prove that he's a better administrator than Krennic is.
Yeah.
So he brings you in as his weapon to disprove that.
Yeah.
Like, and Emperor Palpatine's like, yes, okay, like it's just he's just watching it, and be like, all right, have your game.
Yeah, I know.
It's just like, all right, I don't know.
And we know that while he's doing that, he's working on an even bigger Starkiller project.
Yeah.
Without telling anybody.
Yeah. Like, all right, well, we're going to make that, but also that's going to happen. We'll get that eventually.
Yeah.
But I don't know. He has so many things turning, but he doesn't tell anyone about anything. Whereas, I mean, Thrawn does it some. Like, he doesn't always tell people what's going on, but they also...
He always has a reason when he doesn't tell people.
Sure. And I liked Pharaoh's thing, too, where I think Ronan who was like, you always just follow your commander blindly. And it's like, well, no, I don't follow him blindly. And sometimes I question what he is, what he does. But I often... Is he always right? He's like, he's not always right, but usually when he's wrong, it's because he either had missing or faulty information.
Yeah.
But when he has like all the information, he makes really good decisions.
Which is the reason that he dismisses the other Grand Admiral's information that's given to him in the beginning of the book.
Yeah, because it was faulty. Because it didn't tell them that the whatever the gas was, I forget exactly what it was called, but there was a gas that's what the Grolix were after.
Yeah, it was like argon or something.
Yeah, and they were manipulating it. It was like Cardon 15 or something like that. But like they go and they feed on that, and then they were using that as an excuse to use their hyperdrives to take their ships out of the area so that they could go and get all the stuff off and make money.
It's pretty smart.
Yeah, no, especially with these Grolix. But I love that Thrawn caught on to a part where he was like, well, why do the Grolix do this? So that they're also stranded in space somewhere. It's like seems very odd of them to do that. They don't have a food source anymore. They don't have their flock, like it's like, I don't know, they're crazy. They're just creatures. They do what they want, Like Ronan just dismisses it immediately, and Thrawn's like, that's weird for an animal to work against what their like habitat in nature would be, like if they're doing that. So I just thought it was an interesting thing. Like he's slowly piecing these things together, and also like when they start talking about the Grolak problem, Admiral Savit is the first one to be like, well, but the governor's already working on that. They've been doing that for years. Like, there's no way you're going to solve this in a week. You should not even try that. Like, he's really trying to dismiss a lot of it. I'm like, you know what? That makes a lot more sense that he's trying to dismiss this stuff once we find out that he's the reason that it's all happening. It's not the Grolaks and stuff. So I thought it was interesting that there's little bits of him kind of, like, shoving it away or trying to, like, talk to Thrawn and cause, like, little, like, well, Krennic and Tarkin are using you and you should be against them and not... and. So it's just he's playing the politics game, whereas he's like, Thrawn doesn't know politics at all. But
no, I also appreciate the way the book makes me appreciate the era a bit more. I feel like books that are in this era, the Dark Times, it's the Empire and then Seeds of Rebellion, and that's all you get.
Sure.
Whereas the Grisk and the Chiss are these unknown quantities in the unknown realm that we have no idea. They could be more powerful than the Empire.
Sure.
We have zero idea. There's certainly enough space for that type of thing, I just love the idea that the Empire is not the only thing in the Dark Times that you can tell stories about.
Sure.
And that's why I'm super excited for the Ascendancy trilogy whenever we do end up getting to that.
I also like that a lot of this, too, was Thrawn having to fight, throughout the whole trilogy, was that he also had to fight a lot of Imperial backlash. Not just like, well, here it is, him fighting rebellions, because it makes it harder to root on, like, these guys are trying to fight against tyranny, and here comes Thrawn to take them all out.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes it harder to root on Thrawn.
He has to go through xenophobia. He has to go through all these other hardships, but...
Yeah. But then he tries to come out as, like, a better Imperial than, like, the typical Imperial, right? It's kind of that ego thing you talk about, like, how many different Imperial admirals or commanders or whatever have like that ego of like, I can do whatever I want, I will get it done right. Like, who are you to tell me what I need to do? I know what I need to do. Like, they all kind of have that. I think about like Constantine and stuff like that too, where like they always feel like they know better, and it's their ego as well, similar to like Palpatine.
I love that Thrawn uses the what's it called, the Marge Sable. He uses Ahsoka's move. That's awesome. He just recognizes when it's a good move, and now he's like known for it.
We watched him learn it, right?
From Anakin.
I think from the Anakin in the second book thing, but then he used it again in this book and stuff too, it's just really cool to see like that progress of his, and now he's known for it. No, I like that. I love in the battle against Savit where they have like Savit launches ties at him, and they shoot missiles at the ties to stop the ties, but because he said no bloodshed, they then precision shot all the missiles they shot and cause a big puff of smoke with debris and stuff in it that the TIE fighters then fly through and damage their ships, and now they can't fight anymore. But no one died, no ships blew up, and even the ones that were gonna crash into the Chimera, they tractor beamed. I think they sent the codes or the information.
They sent the precise location for the tractor beam.
To Savit's ship and had him do it. And I was like, not him, but their men. And I thought that, man, he's thought everything out. He's gotten everything he needs with this. And I was like, I told you no bloodshed. He's just like, oh, it's so good.
No, it was crazy because at one point, like, they're firing ion blasts at each other, right? But Thrawn has perfectly guessed what was going to happen, so much so that when the blasts intersect and hit each other, the Chimera actually fires it and it impacts closer to this one. I mean, they fired first. They had to, right?
They're shooting before.
The iron blast, I'm assuming, traveled the same distance at the same
speed same rate.
So that's how much he played him. And I also like how Thrawn's like, I don't quite like music, but, It's like, well, just because he doesn't like it doesn't mean he's not going to analyze it. Have you seen the man?
Yeah.
So that was fun, too.
Which I like them talking about that kind of stuff, too.
Yeah.
I just like, I think it was in the first book with Eli as well, where he's like, look, I got these pictures so that we could analyze. It's like, well, these don't help. But it's continuing that idea of, like, him studying art or music, culture, and all these things to learn his enemy and figure out what they do and how they work and operate and stuff. And it's just things that other Imperials don't do, which I think is why I like him a lot, because he like really tries to understand his enemies, I suppose. And sometimes it works towards him trying to like I don't know. I think there's something here where like there's a world where he might have went and tried to recruit Hera for the Chiss. You know what I mean? Like seeing how intelligent she is and such a good fighter she is, and how maybe she could be beneficial for the Chiss if it could work that way. But usually it seems like the people who have been with him on his side more, not against.
Yeah.
But I also liked, speaking of her, there's a conversation that he has, I think, with Faro, where they're discussing, like, I think Governor Price will mess up. They surely will come get Harris and Syndulla, and they're going to lose Syndulla, and that's going to be a mess. He's like, yes, but losing the Defender program would be a bigger blow. And I was like, oh, man.
Dude, like, yeah, Price screwed that up.
Yeah.
She had all of the stuff with Kanan Jarrus on top of it, and she's like, blow up the stuff.
And throw a parade. And I'm like, oh, my gosh.
Oh, Price.
So there's just those elements where I'm like, it kind of hurts to know what's coming and stuff, too. But they were definitely, like, fun listens to get through.
They were.
Like, learn more about Thrawn.
I feel like I know about the canon version a lot more. And even if that doesn't rear its head in stuff that he's going to be appearing in with live action. Like, I still...
Or Pelion, right?
Or Pelion,
because, like, we had him show up not too long ago, and a little bit on Lothal.
Yeah.
But
you hear his voice on Lothal.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yep.
And then here we have him on the Harbinger, and then it's like he's also going to go to Lothal with you. And like, oh, okay, this makes sense. So, but it's weird because it's like I don't feel like he's been with him that much, but
no,
maybe he's been with him more than I think. I don't know.
I mean, we have some time. I don't know what's all going to happen there. I mean, I loved Pelion in the old Legends. He actually ends up surviving and leading part of the Empire that's like. Well, those Empire guys are like because it splits off into remnants and warlords and stuff, and they defeat almost everybody. But Pelion's Empire is pretty good and actually joins the Galactic Alliance. So he's like, he has like Imperial Star Destroyers and stuff, but they're for the good guys later in the Legends and stuff. So I've always liked him for that and everything. And he becomes like the military leader of the Galactic Alliance too, or one of them with Akbar. So cool. I've always liked him. It's cool to see him in here. But, yeah, it does feel like there's a big opportunity to develop him more. But I also kind of feel like Eli's taken that role a little bit. So, much like, Kyle Katarn, his stories get kind of like, cut up and given to other characters. I feel like Pelion's kind of had the same thing happen to him. But we'll see. I mean, like you said, he did appear in The Mandalorian.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that character. I hope it's done well, maybe. But, yeah, I think this book, for the most part, I enjoy it as a conclusion to like filling out where Thrawn has been. Yeah. I don't know if when doing all this, if they had kind of planned out like gaps in his story from like Rebels to give him spots for these books, or if it's just kind of like we made a gap, but you can fill it in if you want to.
Zahn had a little bit of freedom, but he did have some notes like he couldn't use Ahsoka.
Sure, yeah, I'd heard about that one from our last one, right? Because he was wanting to use her instead of Anakin, I think it was. But like. When they left, it's like, okay, this is where we're going to put in this next story or what we're going to do. Like, I just wonder how much of that could have been planned out or how much of it was like, okay, well, here's what I have to work with. He has 1 week.
Sure. Yeah.
It's like, okay, 1 week. What did he do? Grolix. But speaking of Grolix, too, it's neat to have more of the, like, space creatures, right? Like, we have Purgo, and then we've had Minox inside, like, asteroids and stuff, and the big asteroid worm. Whatever that thing's called. I don't know what it's called. But, like, we've seen those, and this is just having another creature that flies through space itself, right? And, like, eats on electricity or does whatever it wants to do. Yeah. And I'm like, that's cool to kind of fill space as well. Because, like, I always think of space as just the void of nothing. But here we kind of have, like, well, there's other things that are traveling through it as well, not just people on hyperspace lanes and stuff.
Yeah, and I also like how various factions can work. Like, Admiral Aralani can, even if she's not familiar with Imperial ways of doing things, she can still be like, well, I know physics. I know how space works and can still contribute even if she's unfamiliar with the processes and the technology they have, which is cool. You don't get a lot of that in Star Wars.
Yeah. What'd you think of Aralani?
I liked her. I'm curious why Eli keeps bringing up the idea of like it feels what is with Thrawn and her. They had to have some connection.
Were you waiting for like there was a final conversation they had in the book too, and I'm like, are they gonna say they're related?
I thought there was gonna be like, and by the way,
kiss each other.
Vanto, this is my wife.
Yeah,
Lani.
Yeah,
I really did think something was gonna happen.
Whenever they were having that conversation, I'm like, okay, this is the time now. Zahn was gonna do it. This is when you're gonna like Thrawn has a sister. Thrawn has a wife. Thrawn has, whatever it is. And then they didn't do any of that. And I'm like, oh, all right, well, maybe next time. I don't know. But I was wondering that, too, because of Eli working with Thrawn so much, I'm like, he seems to pick up on a lot of stuff. And he seems to be an intelligent guy. And that's why Thrawn sent him here.
Yeah.
What is he on to? He must be on to something. But then we never got that answer. And I was like, oh, what was he on to?
It has to have something to do with the Skywalker thing, right? The navigators. I mean,
and we talked about that last time, right? Like, was Thrawn a Skywalker? Is that why he's kind of so intelligent? Does he still have a little bit of like third sight or something or another?
He loved somebody, like a relative that was, and then got sacrificed or whatever they do with those, primarily young girls.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm curious to see, and I don't know if we will. I don't know if the other trilogy covers any of that. Maybe it will. I assume it must be in the past.
Yeah.
Right? Like when he was with the Chiss.
That's what I would assume too.
So going into that, maybe you get Arlani in that. Like we won't have Eli or any of the Imperials, but we'll have more Chiss, maybe more Grisk and that kind of thing. And we'll see like where he was before he came and met the Empire.
Yeah.
And maybe that will give us more information on maybe who Arlani is or why he is like he is or whatever.
I mean, I certainly want more context to the small glimpses we get when they talk about how the Chiss families are battling and warring in a way, and it seems like there's a civil war happening.
Yeah.
What are the causes of that? That might be interesting to see, and I wonder if that will factor into any of the future Thrawn appearances that we might see in live action or not.
Sure.
If maybe the Ascendancy is not around anymore.
Maybe not.
The civil war could destroy it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope not.
Or the Grisk.
Yeah.
I did like, man, how was it described? Like they were like inside like an asteroid, the Grisk, and they like busted out of an asteroid and started attacking.
Yeah.
But then I thought it was cool that like the Chimera and the Steadfast were like fighting together against it. And they were like, we'll do this. Okay, you cover them. Now stop fighting. Let them take out that. And like they weren't communicating, but in the fight, they were like dancing and like understanding each other's movements and motions and what was happening. And I just thought that was a neat like description and also a neat process of them fighting like two Chiss admirals who are fairly intelligent and good at what they do.
I mean, Eli says it, I think, as comfort to Vanya, but there might be a little truth there too. It's like, well, you get those two together, there's nothing they can't figure out or do. I mean, I loved that Thrawn is having like a 3 or 4 hour session on board the one ship trying to like figure things out, and they're like, hey, I think there are like invisible bombs coming like in 4 hours. He's like, convene all of the staff members, you'll figure it out, and then he just goes back to it. That was fun too.
Dude, yeah, invisible bombs.
Yeah.
And then like the one where what exactly was it where they were like passing something in between the ships?
Yeah, what was that again?
Like they were passing a thing, and like someone was just like
frequency or something.
Said? Well, the frequency was about the shields that they had, right? So they could tell like if we mess with their frequencies, it'll mess with their shields and stuff too. But it was just interesting, like these invisible things they have, and they're looking. I think it was a generator. I think is what it was. And speaking of different things that they notice and do, like they had that slingshot maneuver thing they did, where like they used the tractor beam to help like launch a ship.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Really far.
Yeah.
Like in my head, what I started picturing was like a Star Destroyer, like using a tractor beam really far, but then like spinning just like this,
spin it and throw it,
just be like, just chuck it. But I don't think that's the process exactly. But that's how I was picturing it. Was like, that sounds cool, because like it doesn't feel very fast when it turns, but when it's way out here being taken, you just throw them over there. Like what was it with Savits, where they slingshot them over there, and then they waited and then let them come back in, and I was like, well, it's just a neat maneuver.
Yeah. So, no, I mean, if anything, the only real complaint I had was that, Thrawn just did everything he set out to do, said he was going to do, and he did it. And that's how it worked. There wasn't, like, in terms of, like, strife, I never ever doubted that he wasn't going to get what he needed to get done.
Sure.
I mean, to be fair, he would have to, right, because he's got around. He's not dead or anything, but, yeah, I just thought it was a complete and utter humiliating defeat by Savit.
Sure. But then also, Thrawn lost the bet in the end, right?
Well, yeah.
They did that thing where
technically
he didn't solve the Grolic problem.
Yeah, he did.
I was like, So they're like, so he's gonna get your money.
Uh-huh.
I was like, well, I guess it's good because he just lost it all anyway.
Yeah.
So no wonder he was so mad because what he did have is gone, and the money he would have gotten is gone.
Yeah.
So he's like, I got nothing.
That was bullcrap.
Yeah.
If I was there, I don't think I could have held my tongue.
I think I was dumb.
Like Pharaoh was about ready to do something. I was like, get in there, Pharaoh. Get him.
Yeah. No.
She was all upset that he like left without her scolding him.
Yeah. No, that was frustrating. I was like, man, come on. He solved a problem you didn't even know you had. That was the root of the problem that you had.
Yeah.
These Grolix, let him eat some electricity. It's fine. It's not going to hurt your ships that bad. But yeah.
Fun book. Fun trilogy.
Yeah.
Very much enjoyed it. I'm glad that we got it under our belt, but we have another trilogy eventually. I'm not sure when we'll get to that.
No, I don't know either exactly. Because, I mean, there's so many books we're behind on. And that's one of the things, too. I know, like, we're probably asking these questions and thinking out loud about different thoughts from this book and the trilogy. And everyone else is like, we've already read those books. The answers we know. Get to the books. And
That's true. There's going to be some people that are catching up with us, though, too. Because the Star Wars lexicon is vast.
There's a lot.
It can be intimidating. So there are some people that are just following along with the books, and we'll eventually catch up, or we won't, and it won't be the worst thing in the world. But we're trying.
But it's fun to be able to like take these journeys with some of these books, and then be able to talk about them and stuff too, and like what kind of questions do you have with this or that. Mm-hmm. So I think that would be really neat to do. Yeah, like just getting through more of it. So we'll get to them. Yeah, we'll get more answers in the future at some point.
And I mean, I need to because I need to always hear more of Mark Thompson as Thrawn.
Sure. Yeah. Ooh. What was it? It might have been on a Wikipedia thing or whatever. Because sometimes I'm like trying to look at like characters and stuff about things.
Sure.
There was one thing I found, and I just thought about this, but Deja, right?
Yeah.
Deja was in an old Thrawn book as well.
Oh, really?
I don't remember what it was called, but it was another. There was an old Legends book. It wasn't one of the Heir of the Empire books. Okay. I don't know how many more Legends Star Wars books he's written. But it was a character that they pulled from one of those. I don't know if he was the same kind of character or what, but I don't even know what to look up when I was doing it. But I just saw something where it had like a Legends category.
That's
and
cool.
Like he was from another, not Thrawn book.
Nice.
Thrawn. No? What's his name? Zahn.
Zahn. Timothy Zahn. Yeah.
He's from another Zahn book.
That's cool.
In the past.
No, I liked him. I thought he could fit into other stories pretty easy if you want to bring a character like that.
Yeah, I hope we see more of that character. And I don't know if they were the same character in that. If they were, I want to see more of that story too because I think that would be really cool.
He was in Scoundrels.
Scoundrels, okay. So Timothy Zahn wrote a book called Scoundrels, and he was something in that. At least the name was.
Gotcha.
So it might be kind of like how Pelion, right? He's from Heir of the Empire, but feels a little different in this book than that book.
Okay.
But
I never heard of Scoundrels by Tim Zahn. So
yeah, I just saw a thing about him having like another book. Okay. But I couldn't remember what it was. But yeah, thank you for the info.
Thank you so much, and thank you guys for checking out the review of this book and this trilogy. And again, we're going to be checking out Ahsoka for the next one.
Yeah.
So that'll be exciting.
I'm excited for that one. Yeah, the book is really fun, especially since it's read by Ashley.
Yeah.
So it's like having her voice again, going through it and everything. Yep. So it'll be good. And since I've already kind of listened to it, I'm hoping the refresher, I'll be like, oh, yeah. Like now I got a good grasp on everything if I missed anything before.
I'm actually, this isn't too bad because the world is about to get a whole lot of Ahsoka, but not a whole lot of Ashley Eckstein. So
yeah.
I'm glad we're doing it.
Yeah, get some Ashley in there. So.
There used to be a time where those two names were synonymous for me, and even though Ahsoka as a character is growing and expanding and is going to be loved by a lot more people, it's really cool that Ashley got to narrate that book. That's cool.
Sure, yeah.
I kind of wish they did more of that type of thing.
It's kind of like
imagine a Qui-Gon book narrated by Liam Neeson.
I would love it. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
They should do that.
That would be great.
I'd be fine with any book narrated by people who have played those characters.
A Palpatine book by Ian McDiarmid.
Oh my gosh! Even if they like did a Darth Plagueis book and it was just him reading through it, I'd be okay with that too.
Be cool.
I'd love that.
I love that idea.